Not exactly hidden. Koga frowns as he overlooks the prisoners. He's not entirely sure what they'll be allowed to do with the cretinous bitches, but they were undoubtedly guilty. Once the shock had worn off, the three girls had been threatening them with all sorts of horrific revenge from their friends in the Orega girls. Only the most naive among them actually believed them capable of such for a single second, but those sorcerers in training had been taken aside and had things explained to them. Interestingly, the local sorcerers that had showed up to polish up on their survival skills had been the most pissed off at the girls. Apparently, the Orega girls were a thorn in the side of polite society for a long while. He was able to vaguely translate it to a cross between the local pimp, crack dealer, a roving motorcycle gang, and kidnapping assholes. All in all, the sort of thing you get paranoid about on good days, but generally have no idea where to look for them. Easy, big guy, easy. We need to make sure we don't end up with a hit squad on our asses if we indulge ourselves. Imagar orders as he holds back Bryn Char from rushing into the cave where the three girls are being held. Apparently, the proper businessman of a sorcerer had lost someone to the Orega girls. He hadn't explained to anyone what that history was yet, but from the man's mutterings, the three sources of information wouldn't survive more than a few moments of his wrath. The wrestling of the two is almost a bizarre yin-yang situation. Bryn Char is ghostly pale with dark hair, and Imaghar is of equal size but almost pitch black in hue, except his bleached cornrows. "You don't get it! They're evil, they need to die," Bryn Char snarls. "Holy hell, man, what did they do?" "I can still hear it, I can still hear it," Bryn Char bellows as he tries to bring the forest to bear, but Imagar calms the woods as best he can. Bryn Char is radiating rage and pain and sorrow all at once. "Hear what?" Imagar demands in a fury. He was honestly a little scared by this sudden shift in behavior, and when he got scared, he got pissed. He hated being scared. Then all of a sudden, Bryn Char just heads the other way with a snarl of frustration. "Oh, fucking hell. It's always drama with aliens, isn't it? They live stupid long lives, brother. Plenty of room for lots of stupid in," Brandon remarks as he heads over. In his case, though, I think it's justified. "You've been doing research, I hope?" Koga calls out from the mouth of the cave. "Yay. To be frank, I'm shocked Bryn Char didn't attack you for getting in his way. He's got history with the Orega girls." "Oh yay?" Imagar says as he unruffles his shirt a bit. He had an identical clutch brother, the Apuk variant of a twin. The Orega girls tried to grab them both, and his brother sacrificed himself to give him time to run. Bryn got into the forest, but his brother Zol didn't. A lot of details are lost after that, but Zol was found dead some years later due to massive drug overdose, an aphrodisiac that keeps you hard and thrusting even as it cuts off oxygen to the brain by rerouting it to the dick. 3 years later, Bryn Char emerges from the forest a fully realized sorcerer and starts a rampage. No less than 4 medium-sized towns and a solid dozen small villages were ripped apart as he hunted in vain for the Orega girls. He was half done chewing through a major port city when his current wives stopped him dead and beat the rage out of him. So all this is stepping on a massive trauma button for the poor man, Imagar realizes as his anger turns to sympathy. Why weren't we briefed about this? It sounds like very pertinent information. Why isn't something like this more widely known? Koga asks, and Brandon just sighs. Because Bryn Char's an old fart in a 20-something body. He went through this hell as a teenager, his first run-through. The man is in his 7th century of life and moving on his 8th, he's 684. Dude's old. There have been 2 empresses and several major wars of succession on the planet since then. He's been around the block, and this information had an expiration date somewhere around the Middle Ages. It's a goddamn urban legend in the parts of the planet he was born in, and it's been made, remade, and re-remade into a horror franchise. That's the local equivalent of the Friday the 13th. Jesus, Imigar mutters and Brandon smirks. Not quite that old, he says, and Koga rolls his eyes at that. That's not the point, Koga says as he glares down into the cave at the still swearing and threatening girls. A communicator was active nearby to record it all in case they let something useful slip. The point is that one of the oldest and most adept sorcerers currently alive is emotionally compromised and not thinking straight. It's good to be passionate about your work, but screaming rage is another thing entirely. Yeah, now. Brandon's next words are cut off when they all sense a huge number of people suddenly appear in the village. There's another shift, and Vernon is among them with not only his wife but a dozen other absurdly, elaborately dressed women, battle princesses. So we've got the Empress's blessing? If we work with her princesses, then she's got no problem. These girls not only know the limits but can bring legal authority where we need it. Vernon answers with a nod. Fantastic. Any of you skilled in interrogation? We've got 3 criminals to get some answers out of, and I'm sick of listening to their endless cavalcade of threats, Koga asks. There are princesses out there? Comes a shout of shock from the cave. The babbling changes from belligerent to fearful. If anyone would like to ask them some questions, we've just been holding on to them and recording their stupid rants. Koga remarks out loud. You've been recording us? One of the girls in the cave shouts, and despite his glasses, he visibly rolls his eyes. Yes, I've been recording you. Good God, women, how stupid are you? Koga shouts into the cave as his patience with them finally snaps. Let me in there. I've got some experience with these affairs. Duro Mari remarks as she holds up her skirt and as the very picture of daintiness walks into the dark, foreboding cave with 3 restrained would-be child kidnappers. Koga follows her in and she makes a quick request to borrow his communicator for recording purposes. Then she lights a wall of fire between her and the exit of the cave to block all sight. The green wall flecked with white roars as loud as a jet engine, but still can't block out the screams of absolute terror that echo out. Less than a minute later, the screams stop and the wall flickers away, revealing the 3 criminals curled up in the fetal position and sobbing as Duro Mari calmly steps over the line of flowing lava that she superheated with the warfire wall and seems to almost casually dodge a slough of melted stone. Did you get something useful? Koga asks as he adjusts his glasses nervously. The sweat he's drenched in is roughly 95% the heat and 5% intimidation about a woman that just turned 3 belligerent criminals into a trinity of wrecks. Yes, we have their local contact, and oh my, when we're done with this, I have a niece that's quite the powerhouse. If you really liked what... Ma'am, it's a cooling method. The pheromones are incidental, Koga says hurriedly before she becomes obsessed with the idea of hooking him up with her niece. Oh, all right then. Although if you're in season, you're doing no one any favors by hunkering down in the woods. You're leaving yourself unsatisfied and many women unfulfilled. Duro Mari notes primly. Evolutionary defense, ma'am. Earth is a deadly world, so breeding seasons lasting from puberty to impotence is just one defense, Koga remarks dryly. And when does impotence kick in? For some men, never, Koga remarks, remembering his grandfather winking at him and telling him that he needs to be a bit more careful hiding his doujinshi. Hell of a thing to get told as a 13-year-old. I see. How is it that your race hasn't bred itself to death on your home world? Hadn't you only just now left it? No healing comas on Earth, so living to see 100 years is considered quite the achievement, Koga remarks, and Duro Mari pauses, slowly blinks, and then turns to him carefully. How old are you? Me? Yes. I'm 27 years old. Why? Koga asks, and she blinks. Visibly ponders things, blinks again and holds up a finger for a minute. She then pulls out her personal communicator and goes through a quick list. How much older would you consider someone to be old enough to be your mother? 20 years? My mother was 20 when she had me. Koga answers and Duromari pauses and then slowly puts away the communicator. Amazing. Every member of my family is too old for you, she says out loud in a shocked tone. Perhaps we should focus on the criminal organization we're dealing with rather than dating pools and matchmaking, Koga offers, and she slowly nods. Yes, it's just... Pardon, I had no idea. Never mind. Do please ignore me. You're the one who interrogated the prisoners. I can't ignore you. You've got the information, Koga says as they walk out of the cave together. Speaking of information, you should be aware that one of the sorcerers with us is Bryn Char, and you're aware of his history, I take it. He begins to explain before her gasp cuts him off somewhat. Aware of it? I was a fight coordinator in one of the movies based off his story. Oh no, I thought he wasn't part of this village. He's a temporary villager to both brush up on survival skills and learn new tricks as well as bond with his Lidris-born son, Dare Char Crushclaw. He mated with a Lidris? Duromari asks in shock. He donated sperm and got a son out of it, Koga remarks. They've been bonding over learning shinobi techniques together, but when Bryn Char heard that we had Orega girls here, he had to be literally held back from ripping their faces off. Oh, he would have done far, far worse than that. Yes, but it's considered impolite to go into those kinds of details in the presence of a lady. How odd. It's considered rude to bring up such things in the presence of men by my standards. Great, so are we even allowed to talk to each other? Imigar asks from where he's leaning against a nearby tree. You get the information? Yes, I did. They're aware of a drop point and safe house. Setting up an ambush for one and a raid for the other sounds like a good place to start for me, although I must ask where the rest of my fellow princesses have gone. Up to the village. The quaint architecture has them fairly thoroughly charmed, Imegar says, throwing up air quotes. Oh, I saw. Sturdy wooden buildings and a little creek cutting through it. It's so adorable. Flammable too, so please try to contain yourself. Koga lies. The village is in fact made of specially harvested wood from the dark forest around them. It was still alive and connected to the wood and therefore very fireproof. Oh, don't worry. I'm a princess. I'm in control of myself. Let's hope so. Otherwise, with how adorable you girls find us, there may be a kidnapping in the near future. Imegar remarks and Duromari snorts in amusement before breaking down in giggles at the idea. Koga throws the man a hidden thumbs up that's answered with a wink. The local powerhouses are growing fond of them. That's an excellent first sign. Shall we go? Rendezvous with the rest and explain what we've learned? Get a plan together? You think we can't just march in there and finish everything? I have no doubts that when we hit our targets, it will be like a meteor slamming into window, which means we need to be careful not to break the things we're trying to get our hands on. This is more than just find Orega and smash. We need to find more of them, destroy their illicit merchandise, find their dealers and smugglers, free their slaves, and find the next Orega cell. We need to do this over and over again as many times as possible so that we can get as many of them as possible. Otherwise, we're just going to scare the rest of them so deep underground it'll be 100 years before we hear from them again. Imegar notes and Duromari shrugs. I can wait that long. We're a little more impatient than that. So let's be more patient because we're impatient and oh dear God, I can feel my brain melting. Let's just go up to the village and get a plan going. Imegar begins before groaning and putting his head in his hand in frustration.